Alright, what the heck is up? So, if you clicked on this video, then I think you already know what's coming. I've seen a lot of these Fire Red Leaf Green, uh, Hardcore Nuzlocke tier list of encounters videos. Some of them I think are handled pretty well, some of them I think are pretty bad. A lot of comments I've made on my own here. And I think that I'm going to go ahead and make one because I think I can make a pretty good one. And anyone would like to comment on it, then please go for it. I'm not exactly expecting this to get plenty of views. I've never made a video before, but I just kind of wanted to do it and talk myself through it. So here's the tiers. I just kind of made them. I might switch them up a little bit. Should probably just ban right on top here is kind of reserved for those really good mons that just pretty much trivialize the game in a way that's not that fun, and that you can just kind of send it in, sweep through something without thinking, close your eyes and press A, and be fine, or just never really have any sort of threat to it, especially considering that you get the badge boost from every other gym, you get EVs and all that your opponents won't have. It's Fire Red Leaf Green. It's a pretty easy game. Some of these mons should just be banned. S tier for excellent mons that you're not going to ban them, but they are incredible for major parts of the game, possibly even the entire game. And high base stat totals, decent moves and abilities, just something that you can always have on your team. A, I have here for great. Do I like this tier list? Yeah, this is fine. Just a step below S tier, obviously. That's kind of what that means. Mons that can have plenty of uses, deserve to be on your team, good amount. They have some bulk, have some strength, have some decent move pools, something along those lines. But there's generally something holding it back that's keeping it from being on par with the others. B tier, kind of like your run-of-the-mill Pokemon that you're going to come across and fall off, or they're just a little outclassed by those above it, or they're just not that good for the time you get it, something like that. Niche, C tier here. It's what it says. It can have its uses at times, and it's certainly not useless. But there are some mons that are just entirely useless that I'm going to throw here in this F don't bother tier. Mons that, if they're on your party, they are going in as a sack because you're a good player and you're playing on set mode, and you need to just keep momentum while not caring about Pokemon that die. But this is, again, Fire Red Leaf Green. Not that hard, but maybe you'll need to do that. So starting us off here, I've rearranged the Pokemon in here a little bit to kind of resemble when you're going to encounter them. Like, you'll see that Primeape is here pretty early, when in reality it's like 50-ish in the Pokédex or something like that, just because you get it on one of the first routes in the game. So when it gets down to some of the later ones, like the water routes and all that stuff, it kind of gets jumbled a little bit, but I did my best. So all that out of the way, here we are, starting off with Venusaur. It's actually going to find itself in the bottom of S tier. Yeah, full deal. So yeah, it's a really good mon. Probably going straight to S tier, but it's not like amazing compared to the rest of the ones you'll find in here. But handles early game super well. Can get you through the forest just fine, even though it's not that good at it. But it's not going to get poisoned, so don't worry about it. Destroys Brock. Can get through Misty pretty easily. You might get confused by the water pulses, but you can get that Person Berry outside of the entrance of Mount Moon, so attach it to him, and he'll probably sweep through Misty just fine. Can play a role in the third gym if you really need it to. There's no shortage of those rock and ground types, even after Brock, so he's going to be good for those. Plenty of water types throughout the game. It's a good mon. Probably give it your Giga Drain TM, you give America, give it Sleep Powder. It's unfortunate that I can't get a poison move until post-game, but it is what it is. It's a good Pokemon. Probably the best grass type. Charizard gets a lot of hate in Fire Red Leaf Green, kind of understandably. The flying type doesn't exactly do it any favors outside of just the utility of fly outside of battle, which, you know, has its merit. It's a pretty good thing. Pretty convenient. It's not a B tier mon. It's still an A tier mon, maybe towards the middle of A tier, or like the end of A tier, because at the end of the day, it is a high base stat total flamethrower machine, you know? Um, and there's a lot of battles throughout the game that are you can just kind of throw in your Charizard and flamethrower and kill something. A lot of these other mons that you'll find can't exactly do that. Just send it in and kill something. You'll find the Charizard will be able to do that pretty commonly throughout the game. It's obviously terrible in the early game. Even if you get the Metal Claw move, it's not that good. It's not good at all into Brock. It's still going to lose to Brock. Terrible into Misty. It's okay against Elite Surge, I guess. It's neutral. And then it's obviously really good after that. You know, it's good against Erica. It can do fine against the remaining gyms after that, too. You know, there's always going to be plenty of grass and bug types that you want to just kind of get rid of, and you can do that with your Charizard. It's a decent mon. Blastoise is, you know, the epitome of like a bulky water, which is always a very good thing. And you can get it early on, destroys Brock. You know, it's bad against the third and fourth gym, but after that, it's great into late game. It's good into early game, and then it's like, man, okay, it's solid into mid game because you know you go through the tunnel, you got to kill all those rock and ground types again. You know, having a good water type is always something nice to have, and Blastoise is one of the best ones you can do in the game. You know, Stab Surf, Ice Beam coverage without having to be an ice type is pretty good. Doesn't really get anything else. Maybe like Black Glasses boosted bites, but you don't really need anything. Yeah, moving on here. So your Route 1 encounters Pidgeot and Eradicate. Pidgey starts off. Pidgey and Pidgeot line. I would love to throw this in F tier. I hate this bird. It's just trash. God, I hate this thing. But I'll throw it in niche because you know it's convenient. You know, you get your flying type. Gets Gust pretty early on, and then you'll give it Wing Attack. It just falls off a cliff, man. It's just terrible. It just gets so bad so quickly. Before it even gets a chance to be a Pidgeot, it's already terrible. By the time it becomes a Pidgeot, it's still terrible. It's just so weak. Flying types kind of get boned a little bit in Gen 3 because of the move pool. Wing Attack and Aerial Ace are just weak. And Fly is weak and inaccurate. I mean, it's like 90 or 95 something. I think it's 95, but like it still Fly misses, and you're just like, what the heck, man? It's 70 base. That shouldn't be missing. But it's serviceable. It can take care of those bugs, those grasses. You can probably switch in and just do a little bit of damage before you have to switch it out, and it does its thing. But it's really weak. It's probably the bulkiest of the flying types, which it has that going for it, but I don't care, man. I don't like it. Eradicate is pretty good. If it's Runaway, then it's probably like C tier here at Pidgeot, honestly. But if it's Guts, it's probably just under Charizard. Guts is really good. It's kind of a hassle to set up. Like, no one wants to go get burned or poisoned and then have to go walk to wherever potion right when you get to the gym. It's not fun to do that, which kind of takes away a little bit of value. Obviously, how much you think that matters is up to you. It kind of does to me. Convenience is pretty important. And Facade isn't actually even available in Fire Red Leaf Green, so that kind of takes it off a little bit. Makes me want to throw it into B tier, just because you have to also play with Runaway. And you can't tell, really, if it's Runaway or Gust. Technically, you could if you really wanted to, but it's hard. You can't, honestly. So you just have to catch it and get lucky. But, you know, the early Hyper Fang, Stab normal type moves are pretty good early on, and then eventually you'll probably just sack it, which, you know, It's cool. Maybe throw it off the SSN like Gary does. But moving on. Go to the left of Viridian, and you'll run into either these guys or a Spearow or a Mankey. Now, Fearow is pretty good. Fearow is it's faster, it's stronger, it's just not as bulky when compared to your Pidgeot. But you get it at like level 20 or 18, 22, one of those. It's really good for that early on. You know, you can give it that secret power TM you get from the route next to Bill's house. It gets wing attack and aerial ace, all that, which again aren't great moves, but like when it's actually a bit stronger than Pidgeot, you'll see that it's better to have. Flying types can be useful for a variety of reasons, dodging ground type moves and just doing their thing. It's a pretty good one. Primeape's also pretty good. If you picked Charmander and you don't get your Mankey, you probably want to just reset because it's only going to take 5 minutes anyway, and Mankey's like crucial for beating Brock at that stage of the game. I mean, it's not completely necessary, but it really is, honestly, if you want to just not have to sack anyone. So that's pretty important. It's a decently fast fighter, which is kind of hard to come by, and it hits some pretty hard moves, pretty strong. Kind of frail, but overall very serviceable for you, and eventually it might fall off a little bit, but very important for you early game. You're going to run into a lot of normal types, so you can kind of just beat them down with Primeape and not feel too bad about it. So then you get into the forest. 3 different options here that we haven't touched on yet, and that's going to be your Butterfree, Beedrill, and Raichu. Worst of these is probably Beedrill. He's not F tier, but he's certainly niche in that I hate Pidgeot, so I'll put Beedrill above him for that reason. He evolves it. You get him at 10, which is pretty huge. Obviously useless into Brock, but moving forward, it can do decently. I think it gets Twin Needle for Misty, so that can be pretty big. But it can't switch into it, and it's just gonna die. So it's just not. It's a Nuzlocke. You're playing on set mode. It's not going to be. You're not going to be able to switch it into anything and do anything sort of damage. But that being said, decent attack, decent stab, Twin Needle. It can get like Brick Break and stuff like that. So it can do a little bit of damage, and you get it so early that it's going to be your strongest mon for a little while. That if you need to turn to something to kill something, if things are getting bad, Beedrill might be your answer. So I'd go for that. I'd put it right there in niche for that reason. But it's not doing anything past like the 3rd gym. I know that much. Butterfly's a little bit better. Butterfree. It's great in the sense that it's got great utility. It also evolves really early on and can hit pretty hard with Confusion and Gust, I guess. Not really, but Confusion, I guess, it's a special attacker. But more importantly, it gets those Compound Eyes Sleep Powders. Those Compound Eyes status moves are pretty big. It puts it into like a 91% accurate move or something like that. So you're actually be hitting your Sleep Powders pretty reliably. And that's pretty busted. Like, you could really use that to just play around certain situations if you're looking at what you're going to have to be facing in a battle. That can be really useful. So for bottom of great tier, just for that. And that you get it early on, and it can help out with early stuff, but it also is going to fall off pretty quickly. Although many people can justify like taking a Butterfree to the Elite Four, actually, but that's a whole different sort of story. So if you didn't get either of those, that means you got a Pikachu. And congratulations, that's a pretty lucky thing to see. I don't think I've ever gotten a Pikachu from Viridian Forest in a Nuzlocke, and it's also a pretty great mon. I got a lot of A tiers here, but that's part of because you get them so early and they can service you pretty well throughout the game. So I would say they deserve it for that reason. And Yeah, I'm conflicted here a little bit. I'll let Charizard have its spot there. It's just a pretty good. It gets Thunderbolt early on and can do decently for the Misty. Got to be careful though because like it's frail. It can get smacked around a little bit, but you'll run into a lot of flyers, run into a lot of water types, and Raichu's a pretty good answer to that. You can evolve it and Celadon right before you fight the fourth gym, pretty much, and it's got decent special attack, decent speed, and it's not very bulky, but it can service you pretty well if you need an electric type. If you ran into it, then use it because you're not gonna be able to get that pretty often. So that's pretty cool. So right before Mount Moon, after you beat Brock, there's a patch of grass after a handful of trainers there after the Shorts guy, and a few different encounters here. You can get either the Nidorans, you can get a Jigglypuff, or you can get like the Spearow that you hopefully have. Well, maybe not hopefully because you want the Mankey, but you might get Spearow. But those Nidorans are incredible. I just go ahead and throw them into S tier above Venusaur. An argument can be made for Nidoqueen above Nidoqueen above Nidoking actually. So they both get incredible moves. Their move pool is insane, and Ice Beam, Flamethrower, Surf, Thunderbolt, all those guys that you wouldn't exactly expect them to get on top of their Earthquake and Dig, and they start with like Double Kick and things. Like, they're always going to have decent moves for you to play the game well. And then you evolve it pretty early, like level 20-ish, somewhere around there. And then you already have a Moonstone. So you can literally get a Nidoking before you even fight Misty. Obviously, you don't want it for Misty because that ground type hurts it. But that's insane. That's incredible stats to have. Albeit they did buff his stats later on, like Gen 5-ish or something like that. And right now, in Gen 3, he's a little bit weaker than what you'd see when you pull up his stats online. But it's not that big of a deal. Especially when you get it this early on, you're going to be getting some EVs on it as you train. It's going to become stronger than you'd think. It's pretty incredible to have that. Ground Poison's a decent typing. The move pool can allow it to handle a lot of mons, fill whatever role you need it to. So I would say they're both there. Nidoqueen's just a little bit bulkier, but not as powerful. The reason I'd say that you could put Nidoqueen above it is because a lot of the mons you'll encounter, you might not be one-shotting anyway. Both of them will just be two-shotting. So you could argue that the bulk makes it better because they're two-shotting it anyway, so it might as well be a little bit bulkier. But I'd say it's fine putting them just right next to each other, just like that. If you don't get either of those, then you may have gotten a Jigglypuff, and I'm sorry to hear that. Wigglytuff here, the Guildmaster herself, kind of sucks. Super high HP, but no defenses to back it up. Gets an incredible move pool, just like the Nidos gets their Bolt Beam coverage, some other stuff. But overall, just pretty weak. You have to waste a lot of heals on it outside of battle because it just takes so much damage because it just has such a high HP, but no defenses to back it up. Not that good. But it's not terrible because it has a good moveset. You can play a role if you needed to. Where are we now? So you could have also bought your Magikarp, and if you level up your Magikarp, get it level 20, which is a level cap for Misty. It's 22, I think, something like that. 21 maybe. And you can have a Gyarados, which is insane. Should probably just ban it. Trivializes the game, honestly. That Intimidate such an early on is incredible. Honestly, maybe not, because Gen 3 is at its worst because of this physical special split not existing yet. No, I'm still going to keep it in banned, because as a water type, you want it to take care of those rock and grounds, and you can pretty safely switch it into those Geodudes, Gravelers, and Onyxes, because they're probably going for a ground type move that you can just switch into your this guy with. You can outspeed and kill it with Surf because it doesn't have great special attack, but it still does 4 times super effective Surfs. And that's just incredible. You know, if Onyx outspeeds you and hits you with a rock type, congrats, he'll take like 5 HP because it's an Onyx. And even outside of countering those guys, it does even better against everyone else. You know, it's Intimidate. It, like I said, it does incredible damage, has really high special defense. Its defense is okay, but it's made up for the fact that it's Intimidate. Super high base stat total. You can give it a bunch of different TMs. You give it your Earthquake TM if you want to. Give it, it gets that secret power early on, can kind of go crazy for it. Gets Dragon Dance kind of late. I'd say Dragon Dance isn't actually a good point for it because it gets it really late. A staple on anyone's team, I would just ban it because the game is easy, and Gyarados makes it even easier. But if you didn't, then obviously very, very top of S tier. Moving on, if you go into Mount Moon, a few different encounters you can do here. You're probably running into either a Zubat or a Geodude. Zubat sucks. Actually, I think this is going to be a first F tier because Zubat is, above all else, a nuisance. It doesn't learn any good moves. It isn't as fast or strong as you think. I think Golbat's like base 90 speed, base 80 attack, which is like okay, I guess. Once you get max happiness, it's not even going to evolve into a Crobat because of how Gen 3 works. You can only get that post game. And in Fire Red Leaf Green, believe it or not, Golbat doesn't even learn Fly. It does in later generations. But not in this one. If it learned Fly, I maybe put it into Niche, but it doesn't even learn it, so it's useless. There's no point in having it on your team. And he's super annoying. The fact that he tries to evolve into Crobat but can't makes it even worse because you actually have to sit through that animation or give it an Everstone. And that's just super annoying. I hate that. Don't even bother training this guy. Geodude, on the other hand, is really good. I'll go ahead and do Graveler and Golem separately in case you're not doing trade evos or you are. I'd say if you can only get your Graveler, really good Pokemon, honestly. It just serves such a good... I'll put it behind Blastoise, but above Charizard. It just serves such a great role. There's a lot of physical Pokemon that you can just go in and just destroy that otherwise can be kind of scary, honestly. Like, Crit Hyper Fang from a Rattata or Raticate can do work on literally any of these Pokemon, except for Graveler. You know, Graveler's just going to shrug it off and probably kill it with a Magnitude. So that's really important, honestly. And you'll see that pop up a lot. It can take care of a lot of those mons. It's switching into a Flyer, and a Flyer's not even touching this guy. It's trivial. So it's very, very good on your team. I would say Golem is a bit better just because of the stats, but it serves the same role that allows it to be put into excellent tier because it is very important. You're not going to have too many other mons that can fill this role. Like Onyx sucks. Don't really get any other good mons like that in this game. If you didn't get either of those, you may have gotten a Clefairy, which is actually... I think I'm going to put it at the bottom of S tier. It's actually much better than people say because it's like, it's got decent stats. You know, there's a reason why it just kind of ran OU. That's mainly because it's fairy typing, and right now it's normal typing. But, you know, it gets so many different moves. You can have it be like your Calm Mind, a healer with Toxic Stall, and like maybe Psychic or something if you need some coverage. It can give it your Bolt Beam coverage. I think it probably gets like Flamethrower / Fire Blast. And it's actually pretty bulky. You know, like this guy can be thrown on a team and do anything. So for that reason, I think it's an excellent mon. You get it early. I would say it's very top of A tier, but more likely bottom of S tier. It's very good. If you got a Paris, then you're just an idiot because you had to pretty much purposely go get a Paris from the deeper floors of Mount Moon, I think, or not Mount Moon, Mount Moon, and that's like the worst encounter there by far. Well, I get Golbat sucks too, but at least if you get Golbat, then you can kind of count out other encounters where you might run into Zubat, so you can Dupe's Closet. Parasect sucks. The only redeeming quality, I think everyone knows this, is it gets Spore super late, but like that's not worth it at all, honestly. Just a lot of weaknesses. Doesn't really make up for it with its stats or move pool. Bugs and grass type moves are just very lackluster in Gen 3, and Parasect is a good example of that one. Really bad mon. Even worse than Golbat. So outside Mount Moon, you run into our first version exclusives here. I guess the Nidoran male and female were too, but they're both accessible, you know, by the time you get to the Safari Zone, and there's also trades where you can get either one. These two are true exclusives here. Fire Red, you get Arbok, which I'll throw in the top of B tier. If it is Shed Skin, it's probably like a niche Pokemon. I'm not going to say it's really bad because the move pool is pretty cool. But if it's Intimidate, it's pretty great. So I'll balance it out and put it at the top of B tier. Because you can actually kind of manipulate making sure it's Intimidate. If you run into one and see that it's not, then you can probably just run away from it. Unless you really want to catch it for Duke's Claws purposes. Because you're going to couple other opportunities to get your Ekans. To the right of Diglett Cave, there's Ekans, and then also to the right of Cerulean after you get cut. There's also an opportunity there to get Intimidate Ekans. So, a few different chances. Because Intimidate's such a great ability. And then it's a pretty cool move pool, too. You can give it like Dig and Glare. Glare's a pretty good move. It actually gets Screech, too. So Glare and Screech can kind of cripple the opponent pretty well if you need it to. It gets Acid, I think, which is like whatever. It's a 40 base stab move, I guess. It can get some moves. It can kind of do its thing a little bit. Plus Intimidate. I like using Arbok. It's a fun mon. Wouldn't recommend keeping it on a super long run, but you know, you can use it, and then eventually if you have to sack something, maybe that's your sack, and you'll get pretty happy use out of it. Sandslash isn't as good. I'd say it's at the end of B tier. It's a ground type, which is cool. And give it Dig and give it Brick Break and stuff. Unfortunately, it doesn't learn Earthquake by level up, and it's probably not worth giving it your one Earthquake TM. Because it's just not that great, but, you know, it hits pretty hard. It's pretty fun. Sandslash is pretty cute. Outside of that, it's just whatever. You know, ground types can be cool. Go north after the Nugget Bridge there, and you're going to run into a couple different opportunities here. If you run into an Abra, best of luck there. I hope you're leading with your Venusaur so you can put it to sleep, or your Compound Eyes Butterfree so you can put it to sleep. Because it will teleport to you on the first chance, and if you just throw a Pokeball, you only have like a 1 in 4-ish chance of catching it. So do that, and then throw a couple balls at it. Hopefully you'll catch it. Alakazam is arguably better than Gyarados. I would say it is because they both trivialize the game in a way that Alakazam can just come in and click A bunch of times and wipe most of the trainers in the game. It's an incredible mon, super fast, super strong. Psychic just demolishes people. It gets okay coverage, I think. I don't know if it gets the elemental punches, but it doesn't even need them because Psychic is just crazy. There's no dark types, so you don't need to worry about that. There's like one steel type, so you don't need to worry about that. Like nothing really resists it. So just spam Psychic and it goes crazy. It's kind of honestly the same problem that like Shedinja has in Gen 3, whereas if you look at a trainer's team and like, okay, they can't do anything about it, I'll just lead with it and win. And that's why I'd say it's better than Gyarados, just because Gyarados, like, yeah, Gyarados can also solo a lot of them, but you kind of have to switch around a little bit sometimes. It doesn't just outspeed and kill everything all the time like Alakazam does. Probably just ban it. On the other side, like, Alakazam it can't really switch into anything. It can switch into some special attacks, but if you have it on your team, then just lead it. And whenever something can't die by it somehow, then switch into something else. Kadabra's really good too. I'd say it's top of A tier because it can kind of do the same thing, but it doesn't just one-shot everything in the same way Alakazam can. It can one-shot a lot of people, and it can outspeed a lot, but even less so can it switch in. But it can just make a lot of the game super easy for you. I would say that if you get your Abra, and you're not evolving it to an Alakazam, you can only have a Kadabra, I'd say keep it as an Abra, trade it for the Mr. Mime, because I'd say the Mr. Mime is actually a pretty excellent mon. It's better than Kadabra, just barely. Psychic types are insane, like I've kind of implied here. It starts off with, I think, Confusion. It gets Light Screen and Reflect. It gets Substitute. It gets Encore. Encore is an incredible move in Nuzlocke because you can trap your opponent into doing something, and then you can probably outspeed it and trap it into keep doing that if once you see that the Encore ends. It gets both Shockwave and Magical Leaf. I think it gets Thunderbolt. Incredible coverage moves. I think it gets Baton Pass. I think it gets Substitute Baton Pass in Barrier for defense boost. It's an incredible mon. I would recommend it over Kadabra. It's not quite as strong, but it is still pretty strong, and it's still decently fast, like 90 base. It's a guaranteed timid nature, so it is fast. It's 90 base speed, I think, and that timid nature puts it as practically 100 base speed, which is really good. Trades have the guaranteed IVs and natures like that, I believe, and timid is plus speed minus attack, so pretty much ideal for the Mr. Mime. It's a good mon. Where are we now? So if you're doing Fire Red, you can get your Oddish, which is Vileplume, kind of like a knockoff Venusaur. So it's right around here. It's pretty much the exact same thing as Venusaur, except just not as good, just not as strong or bulky. But it still does pretty much the same thing, except it does get Acid, I think, so it gets some poison coverage. Yeah, that's pretty solid. I think it gets Petal Dance, which is not a great move in Nuzlocke, but it can do well. Victory Bell is not as good. And you'll see this a lot. The Leaf Green kind of gets the short end of the sticks in terms of version exclusive, with a couple exceptions, and you'll see those later. But Victory Bell is just such an odd spread of stats. Like it's like a mixed attacker, but it's not that good. It just doesn't get the utility that Venusaur does, and Vileplume a little bit. I'd just say it's not as good as the others. If you need a grass type, which they come in handy, then it can do the job. But I wouldn't really recommend it when there's other opportunities here that you'll see. Moving on. After you beat Misty, here you have your Meowth and Persian. Pretty good HM slave, but I mean it's okay. It gets like Fake Out. Does it get Technician? I don't think it gets Technician. I think it's just Pickup in this game. But it gets like Fake Out and / Return or something like that, and it can do that pretty well. A Fake Out plus a move, Stab Fake Out plus a Stab normal move can actually kill a decent amount because it is outspeeding a lot. So I would go ahead and throw it in B tier there. I'd say it's better than Sand Slash. Eradicate's Guts potential makes it better than Persian. And Victory Bell probably a little bit better than Persian too because of the typing utility. But like it gets Shadow Ball too, so fast Shadow Ball can handle Agatha decently, I guess, if you really wanted it to. And it can handle your Sabrina pretty well for that reason. So I'd say it's pretty decent right there. More than niche, for sure, more than niche. I also really like it. Farfetch'd, you suck. You're going right there with the other F. Don't bother tiers. If you're playing with a rule that allows you to go catch your Spearow so you can trade it and get yourself a Chading here, Farfetch'd, go for it, but that's going in the bottom of the PC in box number 4 or something, never to be seen again. He sucks. Go ahead and sell his stick. Don't even let him have the leak or whatever it is. Because you don't want him to be happy. He's a bad Pokemon. Diglett Cave is right there. Absolutely clutch for Lieutenant Surge if you needed to. But after that, not that good. It dies to someone breathing on it. And it's fast and can throw out for magnitudes, but if it's not a strong magnitude, then it's probably dead, and it's only good when you get Earthquake. But even then, it's just outclassed. It just dies. It's like it doesn't have like 30 base defense or HP or something like that. It's really, really tough to switch in for Nuzlocke. But can outspeed and kill Lieutenant Surge, which is so important. So I'll put it at the top of B tier, especially if you're struggling. But you shouldn't really be struggling. You might have a Graveler, you might have a Nidoking or Nidoqueen. I think you would only have Geodude at this point. You can give some of these guys Dig. You get 1 Dig TM right now, and right when you get to Celadon, you can buy more Dig TMs. So don't be stingy with it. Go ahead and give it to somebody. It can be helpful. Right outside of Diglett Cave is another route where you can get your Intimidate Arbok if you missed out on it, if you're playing Fire Red, or like a Fearow or one of those guys. But there's also a new encounter, the Drowsy line. And Hypno's pretty good. Psychic types are very good in this generation because of the lack of Dark and Steel types. I'd say Clefable's behind these guys. I think utility-wise, this guy's a little bit just... Hypno's got bulk all around. It's especially defensive, very bulky. It's also like can take a hit on the physical side and can also give out a hit on the physical or special side. It's just got all that going for it. Not super powerful in any of those categories, but it can get the job done. Throw off Psychics. I'm guessing it gets Hypnosis, can do that if you needed to. But it also gets like Brick Break and Shadow Ball and all that, so it can serve well into Sabrina. Serves very well into Sabrina because it gets Shadow Ball. So I would go ahead and give it a try if you haven't used it before. It's a pretty good mod. Obviously very good into Koga, which I haven't talked about too much, but Koga's kind of hard to counter because it's poison. You want to use ground type moves, but half his team has Levitate, so Psychic type is just a very good answer for those. Okay, so you beat Lieutenant Surge, you go back up, you use Cut, you go to the right, and you're about to go into Rock Tunnel. Before you do that, you get a little patch of grass on a new route, or you can find yourself an Electrode, or a Voltorb, that is. And that's like your only new encounter there, so it's probably the one you're going to get. I would recommend catching it, certainly, because when you come back later to go to the power plant, you want to make sure you can Dupe's Claws out the Voltorbs and Electrodes so you can get something else. It's okay. It's the fastest thing you're going to find in the game, which has its uses, but it's like base 80 special attack. Thunderbolts are killing anything it's super effective against, but I mean, probably. But it's not incredible. It can fill your role as your electric type, but it's probably the worst one in the game that's going to do it. But it's definitely better than Niche because, a lot of flyers, a lot of waters. You want an electric type. Outspeeding anything can be good for catching mons, probably. So I would go ahead and say it's an okay mon. But pretty good for okay, that is. Just not great, Go into Rock Tunnel, and you are either catching Geodude or Zubat, whatever one you haven't caught of those ones yet. It's probably whatever the one you're going to get. But if you're not, then you're either getting an Onyx or Machop. Onyx sucks. I can't even justify putting in a niche because it's just so weak. It's defensive, obviously. If you're using items, then you could go ahead and throw in your Onyx, heal up other Pokemon, heal it up, and then switch it back out. That could be helpful, but not in these hardcore Nuzlocks. It is an F tier Pokemon. Super weak, base like 40 attack, which is incredulous if you look at it. And if you ever seen the anime, that's just awful. It's just a weak mon. Better than Farfetch'd for the reasons I mentioned earlier. I'd say it's right around there. If you're playing some other games, and sometimes it has some uses, like in Diamond and Pearl, it can be useful in a couple fights, but not in this game because you get a little bit too late. Machop is the other one. I'd say if you don't have a Geodude already, then it's probably the one you want, but it's not that good. I'd say Machoke is an okay mon. Right around here. It just is a fighting type. It can punch stuff, and it can get punched a couple times and be okay. But Machamp is incredible. It's just super strong, 2 great abilities, and no guard and guts for those really good moves that it gets, and like dynamic punch and stuff. If it's dynamic punch, no guard, that's crazy. That is crazy. Does it get that in Gen 3? I'll have to look that up and find out, because I never really used Machamp. It's super strong. I think 130 base attack. It's got decent defenses, 80, 85, and then 90 HP. It's slow, but that's okay if it's bulky. Yeah, it gets dynamic punch at 59, so technically it's in the level cap. But it also gets cross chop, so you can use that instead. And then it gets like rock slide and stuff, earthquake, dig, I think, and then like for some reason it gets like flamethrower and stuff. But it's very powerful. And for that reason, I would say it can just come in and destroy stuff, like in just one shot things that you won't be able to do with a Machoke, which is exactly what you'd want it to do. That's why it's all the way up here. Venusaur's better though. Yeah, I like that more. Where are we now? So now you're out of Mount Moon, or Rock Tunnel, I mean, and you can't get anything in Lavender Tower yet. You have to go left, bring your Cupmon, because when you get into that grass, your only new encounter is your Fire type exclusive. Fire Red, you're getting Arcanine / Growlithe, and Leaf Green, you're getting Ninetales or Vulpix. And again, Fire Red is better here because Arcanine gets Intimidate, which is incredible. I think this is going to be your best mon here in S tier. Arguably right anywhere from before these guys to after these guys, but it's right around here. It just, if you don't get intimidated, if you realize that you're not intimidated, that means it's Flash Fire, go ahead and run away, because you can go ahead and get another chance at it, and that one route, super tiny route, right to the right of Celadon, right next to the gate to get into Saffron City. Same encounter list there. It's just like a Spearow, like an Ekans. I don't think Ekans is there. Something else maybe like an Oddish, and then your Growlithe. So another chance to get Intimidate. So you can give yourself like a 75% chance to get Intimidate Growlithe there. Be careful because it can roar you away. So lead with your Sleep Powder Mon or something along those lines, and go ahead and catch that boy. You can get a Firestone immediately, which I'd say is probably worth evolving immediately, even though you're going to be missing out on Flamethrower at level 43 or something like that. Because you can get almost infinite money in this game, pretty easily, with the Versus Seeker that you get in the Pokemon Center in Vermilion City. And then there's some like beauty trainers around that give you like a couple $1,000s, 4,000 if you are using the Amulet Coin, which you can pretty easily get in Nuzlocke. So that what I'm saying here is you can get infinite money to go get the TMs from the game corner. So you can buy Flamethrower for Arcanine, It gets extreme speed, it gets dig, it gets overheat, and the victory road. I guess that's super late, but it's a good move. You really just need that flamethrower. Plus, intimidate isn't so good. It's so bulky. It hits hard on both the physical and special side. It's so good for when you get it, in that it takes out Celadon. It can storm through the rocket hideouts. It's pretty good for all the remaining gyms, actually, except for the final one. Yeah, I would go ahead and pick that boy up. He's really good. Fire types are kind of bad early on, but they pick up a little bit later, in the mid game, that is, and Arcanine's perfect for it. And Ninetales it just doesn't hit as strong. It's a little bit bulkier. It's still fast. I'd say it's like top of A tier here. I think Blastoise should be comfortably at the very top of A tier. It doesn't have that flying typing that Charizard has that makes it bad, just flamethrower machine. It's a good mon. It's just not as good as Arcanine, and it doesn't have the ability. If they switched abilities, these Pokemon would probably be switching places here. But Ninetales just doesn't have that. So, that out of the way, you can get to Celadon City, and there's a couple different mons you can get here as your encounter. I would say pretty much all the time you want to get that Eevee. Other encounters you could get include a fishing encounter, which is just like, your typical stuff. Technically, you can get like a coughing in there, or a Grimer, depending on what game you're playing. Like 1%, but barely worth mentioning. You can get your Game Corner mons and like Porygon and some of your typical Safari Zone stuff. You can get an Abra, Clefairy. But kind of want to just stick with the Eevee. If you don't know what you want to evolve it into yet, that's perfectly cool. It's probably a smart decision to hold off until you really need it. But Vaporeon is really good. I'd say it's better than Machamp. It's more reliable. It's just, that stab surf, 130 base HP, decent defenses. Well, I think it has low defense, but it's got really high special defense, so it's a special tank. It's like 90 base special defense with 130 base HP, but it's got 110 base special attack. That's incredible. Surf, Ice Beam without the Ice typing. It gets Aurora Beam, so you don't have to waste money on Ice Beam TM just yet until you really have the money for it. Gets Acid Armor to boost that defense if you really wanted to. Maybe give it Toxic or something, I don't know. It's a really good mon. Jolteon is also really good, not as good. It's better. It's the best electric type we've seen so far. It's better than Raichu for sure. I'd say it's right around here. It does the exact same thing as all these guys, though. Give it Dig if you really want to for coverage. It gets Thunderbolt, Thunder. Pin Missile is a bad move on a Jolteon. Yeah, it gets Bite, I guess, for coverage. Thunderbolt is right there, though. Thunderbolt's the way to go. Flareon. So a lot of people knack on Flareon because before the physical special split, it didn't really get to utilize that 130 base attack. But, where'd I put it there? I have no idea. I have to find it. Oh, there it is. So, it gets 95, I think, base special attack, which is still really good. So it can still throw off those flamethrowers. 130 attack is crazy. It can use Dig. It gets Shadow Ball. Hyper Beams probably kill anything, almost. So it can service as a fire type and also hits really hard on the physical side with a greater move pool than you'd think, albeit not amazing. But it's probably the top of B tier here. If you're sacrificing your Vaporeon or Jolteon for it, I don't know why you'd really do that. Maybe you just don't have a Charizard, you failed to get the Arcanine or Ninetales, and you just want a fire type, and I don't blame you. It can do better than people give it credit for. Moving on here, Porygon. It's got a special place in my heart because I love me some Porygon 2 of Iolite and those hacks of black and white 2 ROMs, all that stuff. Love them on, but unfortunately, right now it's just not good. I think why would you spend? This is the epitome of don't bother, because why would you spend that much money on a Porygon? Um, if it were just in the wild, like, I mean, this is something where, like, if it were on Route 1 with the Pidgeys and Rattatas, I could honestly justify going in A or B tier. But at this point in the game, with how much it costs, with not being that good, it's a don't bother mon. It gets decent move pools, like a lot of normal types do. Has an okay special attack, but just came in a generation where we really need evolutions that we just don't have available right now. In this game specifically, I guess. Let's see here. So now, moving on. If you go ahead and use cut on the left side and go north, go grab that fly HM, come back to the right, avoid those trainers with the Ninetales and Rapidash because it's kind of scary. Avoid the Snorlax for now because you don't need it just yet. You can get yourself a Doduo or Dodrio, and that is your best normal flyer in the game. It's definitely better than Fearow. I'd go ahead and throw it right around here, around Ninetales in terms of overall use. The thing that makes this guy so good is it gets the best flying type move in the game, which is kind of crazy to say. It's Drill Peck at base 80 attack with 100 accuracy. The other mons don't get that. And it also gets Tri Attack, which is a fun move. 15% chance to have some sort of I believe it's 15. I think it's 5% all around for burn, paralyze, or sleep. No, burn, paralyze, or freeze. Which is fun, and it's also a decent move. Probably worth giving your return TM to this guy. Well, I mean, if you're using Snorlax, but we'll get to that one. Gets Fly, faster, stronger than the other ones. It's a good mon. Would recommend using this one over the other ones. And you get it in time for your fight with Erica if you need it as a Doduo. Yeah, and it just does pretty decently for the remainder of the game. So after you do all this, now you've beaten Erica, you've beaten Giovanni. You can go to the Lavender Town Ghost Tower, I forgot what it's called, whatever, Lavender Tower, and get yourself probably a Ghastly, maybe a Cubone, hopefully not the Cubone. Hopefully you get yourself your Haunter / Gengar. Gengar is not going into, should probably just ban, but it is going into the top of S tier. 3 immunities in fighting, normal, and ground is crazy. Being immune to ground as a poison type is just wild. Not too many, like, there's some psychic types that it sucks that you can't deal with because you're technically a ghost type, but you're also can't hit it very powerfully and you're weak to it. But everything else, it just does so well. It gets good coverage moves. It gets your I'm trying to remember exactly here what moves it gets. But it gets your Hypnosis and Dream Eater stuff. Yeah, it does get Thunderbolt. Shadow Ball's just not that good for it. It gets Giga Drain, Thunderbolt. Don't really want to waste your Giga Drain TM on it because there's grass moves or grass Pokemon you want to use that for. I guess the move pool is super lacking to where it's not actually that good just yet. I mean, you go into one generation later, it's crazy because you actually get your Stab, Ghost, and Poison moves that can actually do some damage because of the special split, physical special split. But for now, base 65 attack just isn't cutting it. So I guess it's not actually as good as you want it to be. Those immunities make it super good. But I'd actually put it behind Nido's. I want to do this. I'm tempted to put Venusaur over the Nido's as of right now. We'll come back to it maybe. And then Haunter just doesn't hit as strong and has the same problem. I'll throw it right here. But those 3 immunities are still pretty huge in Nuzlocke. They can just serve you really well. Yeah, those immunities make it to where it can play a role in our team to where you can just get around positions that you didn't think that you were going to be struggling with. So I'll go ahead and put it in great tier for that reason. If you got Cubone, I'm sorry, that sucks because Cubone's kind of buns. If you have one holding a Thick Club, or if you can go Thief off a Thick Club, that makes it like really good, but I wouldn't bother wasting time with that because it hits so hard. If it's holding a Thick Club, it probably hits harder than anybody in the game. But they're rare to come across, and they're rare to be holding it, so I wouldn't go through the hassle of all that for a mon that I'd say is just okay. I think it's better than Dugtrio because it's defensively bulky. It's not like you're sending it in against many special people outside of electric types. I'd throw it right around. Yeah, I'll just throw it right around here. It's okay. So after you take care of all of that, you then get to talk to Mr. Fuji, who gives you the thing, the Pokeflute, and that allows you to get a mon that you should probably just ban, which is Snorlax. Super powerful. Doesn't outspeed anything, but doesn't need to. It's got like 160 base HP or something like that off of like 110 attack, 110 special defense. Absolutely crazy. Can probably go through in one shot a lot of mons. Gets that body slam. Give it your stab return if you're using it. Honestly, a mon that you can throw Hyper Beam on because it can just kill like anything and then just like chill out for a second. It gets Shadow Ball, so it's crazy into Sabrina and Agatha, I guess, if they don't just put you to sleep every turn. And Shadow Ball is physical, as I've alluded to, so probably just ban it. It's just so strong, for reasons I've talked about earlier, where it can just one man army through an entire like route. Honestly, it's crazy. Could potentially go up here. If you're excited to use it, use it. Like I said, if you want to use any of these guys, don't worry about. Should probably just ban. I'm just saying that they do trivialize an already pretty easy game, so I would say that. But if you're new to it, if you've never Nuzlocked, use anything you want. But you'll quickly realize that if you are using, I guess specifically Gyarados and Snorlax, because they're almost guaranteed for you, then you'll realize that, yeah, he probably had a point that these guys are overpowered. Whereas these guys are not as overpowered. Moving on here. Technically, you can go straight into whatchamacallit. What's the town with Sabrina? What's the psychic town called? I can't remember. With the Silphco. Anyway, I'll come back to me. And you can go ahead and go beat the fighting gym, which is kind of hard, level 37s. And you can go in there technically right when you get to Celadon. You can get the tea from the person in that one building and go straight over there. And if you have something that can handle it, you can go ahead and get yourself like a level 25 Hitmon like immediately. And they're pretty good. Hitmonlee's pretty bad. Hitmonchan is pretty bad because of the lack of physical special split. Those fire, thunder, and ice punches are really bad right now. Its stats aren't as good as Hitmonlee's. It's a little bit bulkier, but I don't think I can put it. Like, compared to the fact that you could just pick up the Hitmonlee, which is a great Pokemon, There's no reason to get your Hitmonchan. I guess I can put it here. I'll put it here because it's still like a fighter. It's got a little bit of bulk to it. It's just sad that it's got like base 30 special attack when it has its key thing is those punching moves. So I'm not going to put it anywhere higher. But Hitmonlee gets like, it gets your typical fighting moves. Plus like some individual ones like jump kick and high jump kick, which aren't that good in this generation, but they can be fun to use. Although really risky in a Nuzlocke because you're going to hurt yourself really badly. But, can't be paralyzed, I think. Its limber is always its ability. Pretty solid. With good stats and fighting type. If you're in here, you can also go ahead and do... Technically, you can get your Lapras. Technically, even though you would have to fight your rival, which has some pretty strong Pokemon. But it is available. Lapras is an excellent Pokemon. It's not... So the thing about Lapras and those water-ice types is, like, if you have a water type, you want it to go ahead and take care of the rock and ground types. You probably have to switch it into those guys, but they might go for, like, a rock type move, which you're weak to, which kind of sucks. I think the ice types just aren't great defensively. Ice is weak to what? We got rock, fighting, fire, steel, probably missing something there. And it just isn't... That just kind of takes it down a notch. I'd rather have a bulky water type with Ice Beam coverage. I would like to see if Lapras gets Shell Armor in this generation, because Shell Armor in Nuzlocke is super key. Yeah, so it's either Water Absorb or Shell Armor, both of which have their uses, but Shell Armor in the Nuzlocke is amazing. Can't get crit. It's a great Pokemon. It's just kind of brought down by the fact that it's also a nice type. It gets... I think it gets Thunderbolt and Psychic, which is pretty cool. Just some good coverage. And so I would say it's pretty good for that sense. I'd say it's right around Blastoise tier, because although it's the water and ice type, it's just such a good mon. Do I really have Hypno? Yeah, because the Psychic types are just really good. You'd be surprised at how well they handle all these, the generation. Like, Blastoise and Lapras are better Pokemon than Hypno and Mr. Mime. But for a Fire Red Nuzlocke, I'd say these guys, if you manage to get your hands on one of these Psychic types, which is kind of hard to do, then they can do really well for you. Whereas, Blastoise and Lapras, you can go ahead and get a Vaporeon pretty easily. If you're using Gyarados, you can use Gyarados. And I haven't even gotten to the plentiful water types that we'll be coming up to soon. You can also get a Ditto at this point, technically, on those routes east of Fuchsia. You know what I'm talking about? To the right of the Poison Gym guy. And he sucks. He is the worst, I think. I think he's worse than Farfetch, because Farfetch actually know what you're trying to do. Ditto sucks. Don't even bother with Ditto. Until it's like Gen 7 when it can do stuff, but right now it can't. So speaking of Fuchsia, you can go ahead and get into the Safari Zone, which is pretty cool. How you want to handle that is kind of up to you. In terms of Nuzlocke encounters, Saffron City is the Psychic Gym. There we go. In terms of how you want to handle your encounters, I like to go ahead and just do each area is a new encounter, because I've gone 0 for 4 before in terms of catching. I run into an Executive, it runs away. Run into a Rhyhorn, can't catch it, runs away. Run into one of these guys, can't catch it, runs away. So I just go ahead and make everything a new encounter. If I get all 4, that's awesome. Usually I've gone 0 for 4 before. I've gone 1 for 4 before. I've never caught more than 2 of them. And it's a Safari Zone. The whole point is to catch Mon. So it's a pretty cool concept to just go ahead and allow whatever you want to do in those lots. So all that said, let's get into it. You could run into an Execute right away, which is a good mon. Evolve with Leaf Stone. Psychic Grass is not the best typing, but it's a Psychic type. Super bulky, can hit on the physical side and special side, even though you're probably just going to want to do special side. If you're using it, you can give it your Giga Drain TM, you can give it the Psychic TM, and that hits, and that's really good. It gets Chlorophyll, so if you want to do Sunny Day Solar Beam strats, you can do that too. It's pretty bulky. Say it's right around the champ's overall use. Well, Golem's probably better for that defensive utility. All these Psychic types kind of find their way into the bottom of S tier, and that's understandable. Rhyhorn and Rhydon. By the time you get it a little bit past its prime, in the sense that what Graveler and Golem do for you, by this point, you're probably not needing it as badly as you would have needed it earlier. But it's obviously going to do well into Koga. It's obviously going to do really well into Blaine. Not as well into the other two remaining gym leaders there, in Sabrina and Giovanni. But, you know, it's not going to do too well into Lorelei, because it's just going to get outsped and one-shot by everything. Not good into Bruno, not good into Agatha, debatably. Yeah, like, you see what I'm saying here? It's just not doing as good. It's overall a great mon to have, but at this point in the game, not as good as you might think. Can do really well with random trainers and all that, but, you know, and it's, like, pretty good for a couple gyms. But I don't like having it much higher than around here. Until you get to Gen 5, you give it an Inviolite, and then bang, it's really fun. Venonat, Venomoth. Venomoth kind of sucks, but I'm not going to throw it into trash. I'll just throw it into niche right here. Maybe it is don't bother, because, like, when are you going to use it now at this point? At this point, you're like, oh boy, I got myself another bug poison. Like, really? Like, going into, what, the poison gym? Useless. Going into, well, it gets Side Beam, I guess, not completely useless. Yeah, and it could be the one mon that you want to go ahead and sack for yourself. So I'll throw it right here. But going into Sabrina, terrible. Going into Blaine, terrible. Going into Giovanni, terrible. Don't even need to ask me about Victory Road or Elite Four. Obviously terrible. So yeah, I will throw it into Don't Bother, even though it can do something against Koga, but that's not. But congratulations. I'll throw it right there. Then you're going to get into those ones that you're probably never going to have. I used Tauros one time recently, and all my Fire Red runs I've ever done, I got a Tauros once, and it was tons of fun. Took it to the Elite Four, it had Intimidate. It was my strongest attacker with a plus attack nature, gave it the Return TM, gave it Earthquake, Rock Slide, tons of fun, really good mon. Problem is, it's going to be really hard to get it and use it. But it gets Intimidate, hits really hard, hits really fast. You know, there's a reason it's the king of Gen 1 OU. Obviously, some of those mechanics don't apply anymore. But I throw it right around here. If you, it's hard to put it here because, like, are you really going to get it? Probably not. Probably not. Maybe, like, every 10 runs you might be able to get it. I don't really know if you're lucky. If you're using the rule set that you can get multiple mons in Safari Zone. But it's an excellent mon. Gets Intimidate. Kangaskhan, not as much. Equally difficult to catch. Not as powerful. It's a normal type. It's fun to use. Normal types are always very fun to use. I would recommend picking them up every now and then. But not that good. I'm going to put it right here. Pinsir sucks. Pinsir's a niche Pokemon. Just because it's Gen 3, dude. It doesn't get any good Bug-type moves. It doesn't get any Bug-type moves, I don't think. Maybe Fury Cutter. Get some Fighting-type moves, but why would you put that on a Pinsir of all things? If you're using X items, maybe you can do like some X accuracy, X speed, guillotine stuff, but that's a whole different topic that could also help out a lot of other mons here. Just not fun. Scyther, a little bit better. It's pretty fast. Give it Swords Dance, Wing Attack, and some other moves. Doesn't get any good bug moves, but if you get this, then you can make it work. Bug Flying is... It's Gen 3, so Bug Flying isn't as bad yet. No Stealth Rocks or anything like that. No great rock moves. And no one really gets good rock coverage. So you can make it work. Put it at the bottom. I don't feel comfortable putting it as a great mon, but you know, with the speed and the swords dance and the, I mean, with slash, wing attack, probably gets like brick break and stuff like that. If I were to get it, I would use it because how in the world, when in the world am I going to be able to do it? So I'll put it in the bottom of A tier. I'll put it in great. Chansey is pretty insane. I don't know how you caught a Chansey in a Nuzlocke, but if you did, congratulations. It's a hassle to use, but you can get like soft. You can stall out literally every special attacker in the game. Give it soft boiled, give it toxic, give it I guess that's pretty much it. It gets like bolt beam coverage, even though it's not that strong, but it gets them. But like in the same way that like Guts can be annoying to use, Chansey can be annoying to use, and so that plays a little bit of a role in my decision-making process here. Like Executor, you just know when you want to throw it in and kill something. Chansey, you're like, okay, I guess I have to stall this guy out a little bit, but I can make it work. So it's still really good. It's excellent, honestly. You can easily put it into the category of just ban it because it's not as fun. But it's not that broken. It's pretty broken, but I'd put it right here, something like that. We've got a bunch of water types coming up. I'll go ahead and do the Dratini line first because you can technically get that in the Safari Zone here. I can't not put Dragonite in S tier, but it falls at 55. Your level cap goes from 50 to 60, I think, after you beat the Giovanni, so then you can finally go ahead and evolve your Genie into Dragonite. Now you have the best flying type Pokemon in the game in Dragonite. You give it Fly, you can give it like Dragon Claw or Outrage, you can give it your Earthquake TM, you can give it, it gets so many TMs. It gets like the Flamethrowers, it gets like, I think it gets Bolt Beam coverage, I don't really know though, it gets Surf for sure. You can give it like Thunder Wave for utility if you wanted to. It gets anything you want it to, but I pretty much have listed the only important things. And it's so strong. Base 134 attack, I think, or something like that. Something weird. And it's a pseudo legend, you know, it's got 600 base stat total. But I'm going to throw it in the bottom of S tier because, you know, you only get to use it after you beat all the gyms, you know, so that's not that fun. Moving on here, let's go into our water types. I'm going to be pretty quick with most of these. It's a water type Seeking. It sucks though. Very bottom of niche, but it's a water type. I'm not going to put it into Don't Bother. Yeah, I will, because you have literally every other water type is better than it. Golduck, Fire Red, I believe, exclusive. Not that good, but it's a water type. I'll put it like right around like I guess Machoke maybe. Slowpoke's really good. I'd say it's right around here, arguably better than Arcanine. Water Psychic's a really good typing. Super bulky. It gets Ice Beam, Surf, Psychic. It gets Fire Blast, which I think for some reason. I don't know if it gets Slack Off in this game, but if it does, that's insane. If it does get Slack Off in this game, I will go ahead and put it into better than Arcanine. But no, it doesn't. Okay, good. It gets like no recovery, I don't think. But it does get Flamethrower, Fire Blast, Rest, I guess, technically Resto Chesto if you really wanted to. And all those moves, Ice Beam, Calm Mind, you know, it's really good. So I would go ahead and keep it right around here. While I have that there, now I'll just keep going in order. Kingler, not that good, really high attack, but you know, it's not what you want out of a water type. I'll put it like right here. But you know, Crab Hammer is a cool move, but you want your water type to be kind of using Surf. So I'll throw it right at the bottom there. Not really worth it. You could technically trade your Golduck, or I guess they're asking for a Slowbro and Leaf Green because that's exclusive and it's always a Golduck and Fire Red for a Licky Tongue. Don't bother doing that. Licky Tongue sucks. It gets cool moves, but it's not. That's the only thing it does because it's a normal type. Not that good otherwise. Or you can get a Poliwag in a numerous amount of places right now, or a Poliwhirl. And you can evolve into your Poliwrath with a Water Stone. Water Fighting is pretty cool typing. It gets good coverage. I'd go ahead and throw it in Great. I think it's much better than Flareon, but not that much better. I'd throw it right around Primeape, I guess. Surf and Ice Beam. It can be like a special attacking-ish fighter, which is pretty cool. Give it like Brick Break and stuff like that. It can do something cool there. You can trade a Poliwhirl, I think, for a Jinx over in Cerulean, which is okay. I mean, like, Stab Ice Beam, Stab Psychic is really cool. But again, this is a Nuzlocke, so it's going to be a little difficult to switch in things. You know, you can get it. You can fish these guys up in some places, so you can technically get it before Koga, so you can just outspeed and kill everything with Psychics, probably. Not that good into Sabrina or Blaine, obviously, but pretty good into Giovanni. Can probably outspeed and one-shot everything on Bruno's team. Risky to take into Agatha. Good into Lance. Can do fine into others, but like, it's not good to use these mons that you pretty much need to lead because you can't switch them into stuff. But it gets its moves, and it's actually pretty good for when now that I'm thinking about it, the matchups it has, it can do things pretty well there. So I'll go ahead and throw it around like Rhydon's tier. Whether you want Poliwrath or Jinx is kind of a coin flip. Jinx is pretty cool, pretty fun to use. Not something that you use pretty often, so I'd give it a shot every now and then. Ice and Psychic is just really fun typing to go ahead and try out. If you're playing Fire Red Omega, Jinx is pretty awesome. Moving on here. Shoulder and Cloyster. Super high defense. Obviously, water, ice type. Same problems as I talked about earlier. Like, you want your water type to be able to take care of fire types, to switch into fire types. But ice makes it weak. It has no HP and no special defense. It just dies to a flamethrower. So that is kind of a problem. It's also a water type that's technically weak to rock type moves. Ice type that's weak to grass type moves, you know. So it doesn't play its role that well. Doesn't have any good utility yet. It's like Spikes is kind of useless. Doesn't get Shell Smash until Gen 5 or 6, so not that great in Fire Red, Leaf Green, but it's definitely better than Niche. It's still a water type. That's not Seeking. So I'll go ahead and throw it around here. You should be better than this. Guts potential is pretty solid. Yeah, that sounds about right. Seadra, pretty bad. Not as bad as Seeking, I think. I'll go ahead and throw it in Niche. It actually is, its stats are a little bit better than I think I'm giving it credit for. Obviously, you can't get a Kingdra in this game. 95 special attack, 95 defense, 55 HP, 45 special defense, 85 speed. Serviceable. Probably top of Niche. No, I'll go ahead and throw it here. And I'll throw you in the top of Niche because you're just like, you don't want your Kingler as your water type, you know. Not in Gen 3. Starmie's amazing. You can argue to just ban Starmie, but the thing is, it's only available in Leaf Green, and like, you're already kind of getting shafted a little bit by their encounters. Like, Arcanine's better than your Ninetales. Nidoking's a little bit better than Nidoqueen. You know, I've kind of made this list a little bit. Slowbro is obviously much better than Golduck, but Slowbro and Starmie play the same role anyway. I'll go ahead and throw Starmie at the top of S tier. You don't have to ban it. But, you know, Surf, Psychic, Thunderbolt, Ice Beam, gets Recover. Be careful about when you evolve this thing. It's because it doesn't learn any moves, but you want to get that Recover and then evolve it. Super fast, super strong, takes care of Lorelei with Thunderbolt and resists, takes care of Agatha, or it takes care of Bruno with both of its stabs. Takes care of Agatha with outspeeding probably, and its stab psychic, taking care of all the poison types there. Takes care of Lance with Thunderbolts and Ice Beams. Honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, like, come on, you hear what I just said? It beats Blaine by itself. It beats Giovanni by itself. Wow, that's actually an incredible Pokemon. If you want to use it, go for it. I'm not going to put it into ban, but it very easily could be. Like, as good as Water Psychic is, Slowbro doesn't outspeed everything like Starmie does and just kill it. Part of why Alakazam is so busted. Tentacruel, very good. It's fast, very specially bulky, can hit pretty specially hard. It's got decent HP and defense, serviceable it is. Throw off those stab surfs and ice beams. It's a water type that's weak to ground, which kind of sucks. But it's still really good water type. I think it's right here. I'd probably prefer to have the pure water Vaporeon before it, but it's just a very strong Pokemon. Especially for when you get it in the game. Very good for Blaine, obviously. Very good for the Elite Four. I would say it's a good mon to go ahead and use. Moving on here. Magneton. So after you beat Koga, you can go ahead and surf. You can go back to where you caught that Voltorb. Go up that water there and go south. You can get down to the power plant. And you can either get yourself a Pikachu if you are, a little unlucky at this point to get Pikachu because it's kind of a rare spawn and you want a Magnemite for sure. If you're playing Fire Red, you can get Electabuzz, which is okay. It's better. It's probably around Raichu's level, but either that, you can get a Voltorb, but you should already have one, or a Magnemite or / Magneton. And Magneton is really good. It's the only Steel type in the game. Steel Electric is amazing. Sturdy is a bad ability right now. Magnet Pull, I think, is the other one. Also pretty useless right now. Actually very useless because the only other Steel type is Magnemite and Magneton, so you don't need that at all. So, unless you're fishing for magnets, but that's something else. It's very good. I'm trying to think of when you get it, when it's actually useful. Can obviously take care of all the flyers that you still have left. I mean, obviously bad into Blaine. It's fine. It's good into Koga because it doesn't take any damage from poison, and it resists the self-destructs and can hit really hard Thunderbolts. Wait, no, you can't even get it for Koga. I'm sorry, because you need Surf first, so you can't do that. Bad into Blaine. Not good for Sabrina. It's okay for Sabrina. Not good for the next gen, but get to the Elite Four. It's good for the start of it. It's not good for Bruno. It's whatever for the remaining guys. But it just serves such a good role in your team. Once your Golem starts kind of getting outclassed as a physical wall, Magneton can kind of take its place as your premier Steel type, only Steel type, and a good Electric type. So it's just a good mod to have on the team. It's very good. Steel Electric is insane. Steel is a crazy typing. If you get touched by the ground, then you die. Touched by some fire, you die. But it's such a good mod. Unfortunately, it's not amazing for when you get it. If you can get it earlier on, that'd be crazy. It'd be top of S tier, but because you get it so late, it's just a great mod to have on the team instead of a truly broken mod. I put it right here because of utility. Tentacle's a little bit better for when you get it. So like I said, you may have also gotten Electabuzz. Electabuzz is basically just Raichu. I don't feel like I don't really need to get into it that much. Except for the fact that you get it so late and it's not as good as what it could have been earlier. So I'll just put it at the bottom of Great Tier right there with Scyther. Because if you really need an Electric type, if you need something to go into Lorelei with, and just handle some other mons, then he's alright. Tangela is don't even bother. I think you get it You can trade for it, and for your Raichu, which why would you do that? You can, but more importantly, I guess you can get it right below Pallet Town, right in that little grass there, right underneath the lab. And it's just a bad mon. It evolves in Gen 4, which is pretty cool, into Tangrowth, which is a fun time. But right now, it's just a really bad grass type. It's like literally like spaghetti. I don't know what this design is. Um, Not that good. And put it like right here. So keep surfing around. You can get to the Seafoam Islands. You can get yourself a Dugong, which is pretty cool. It sucks. It's a water ice type, but nowhere near as good as Lapras. I put it right around here. Ice Beam, Stab Surf, Sheer Cold, I guess. It doesn't really get anything else. Amnesia, I think. I don't know. Horn Drill maybe, but I don't know. It's just not a good mon. I put it right around here. Cloister's better for sure. Yeah, that makes sense to me. If you are at this area, you can probably go ahead and go into the Pokemon Mansion. You can find yourself one of these poison types if you don't get a Growlithe or a Raticate or a Ditto or something. Muck is pretty cool. I'd say it's a great mon. We're so late into the game now that it's not as good as you want it to be. It's a special wall. It's pretty limited on moveset, I think. You're gonna have to do that cheese with it, where you just like kind of do minimize strats and stuff. It gets like Sludge Bomb at 47, I think. It gets Screech, it gets Acid Armor before then. It gets your special moves. It gets like Thunderbolt and Flamethrower and stuff like that. But its special attack is what, only like 65, I think. It's not that good. At this point in the game, it's not that great. I'll put it right here. Right here with Wheezing, though. Wheezing is good because it's a poison type with Levitate, so it's only weak to Psychic, and you're kind of past the Psychic in this game, outside of like your rivals, Alakazam, a couple times coming up. So it's super physically bulky, which has a lot of merit in Nuzlocke. It doesn't get hit by earthquakes. It's surprisingly good. It's just super bulky. It can come in. It can do a little bit of damage. It gets the same sort of cool learn set that Muck does there. 120 defense is pretty good alongside your 65 HP, which isn't that good, but it can do something. So yeah, I'd say that's all right. It can explode if you really want it to, which is cool. It gets Shadow Ball, Thunderbolt, Flamethrower, Shockwave, those sorts of deals. Can have a use on your team if you needed to. The fossils. So if you're gonna get one, I'd say Aerodactyl's probably the way to go. But because like Amistar is pretty okay because it has high special attack. I think it's like 120 special attack, but it's just super slow. Water Rock isn't great. It just gets destroyed by grass types, obviously. But it's water type that gets killed on the switch into the Earthquake to the ground type that you want it to actually counter. Can take care of flyers though. Can take care of those rock grounds, like not really, because of the reason I just said. At this point in the game, it's so late, it's just outclassed by all these other ones. I'm just going to put it in the okay tier right here. And Kabutops is even worse. Gets some pretty cool moves, but like, we're just so late in the game that why would you want to do that? Especially when you can get Aerodactyl, which is a really good mon. Outside of like Dragonite's probably the best flyer. It doesn't hit as hard as you think it would. But you know, it gets Ancient Power, which is cool in Fire Red Leaf Green because it's 60 base power physical move. With the possible stat boost, you can give it the Rock Slide Tutor for 75, a little less accuracy if you want that. You can give it Fly. Probably some other cool moves you could give it if you really wanted to. Steel Wing, Earthquake. It's really late in the game now, though, but it could be fun. Because of how late in the game, I don't think I can really put it this high. I'll put it right around here. For the same reason that you can't even get Ponytail, Rapidash, and Kanto, you have to go all the way to one island. And if you're playing Leaf Green, you can get yourself a Magmar. But Magmar and Rapidash, you only have the 8th gym left. They're not going to be great into Victory Road, albeit there's some like grass type trainers and stuff, just ace trainers all around where anything can have a good use. Not going to be good into the Elite Four at all, either of these guys, really. Lorelei's ice types, but they also just will outspeed the Magmar, kill it with water moves. Well, probably not outspeed, but definitely not die. I can almost put them in don't bother tier, but there are fire types at the end of the day, which can do something. Yeah, I'm comfortable putting them there. Cool. I would say, so for these legendaries, obviously you're banning your Mewtwo. Mew's unavailable, but just to fill out the Pokedex, go ahead and ban the Mewtwo. And then you just have your legendary birds left. I would say Zapdos is a ban for sure. I'd put it like right here in terms of if we're counting these right now. If we are doing that, I'd do this right there. And I go ahead and ban the birds as well, just because they're legends. If you didn't ban them, I would say Moltres. Fire Flying's not great, but so powerful. I would say it fits right here. I'd say Slowbro's a little bit better. And Articuno, it's really bulky, but it's Ice Flying, also not a great typing. But throwing out Stab Ice Beams can just decimate a lot of teams. I'll go ahead and throw them right around here together. But if it were me, I'd just go ahead and ban them all, because they legends. Cool. Well, hope you enjoyed it. Give me some feedback. And maybe I'll do another one of these in the future. Who knows? All right. Peace.